Hey guys, I'm Spencer from Pixel Bracket, and if you're watching this video on the day it came out or any other August 25th, it's my birthday. So I thought I would show you guys how to make like a flat designed birthday cake in Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to be creating the birthday cake that you see here. I just made this guy and I played around with some different options, and I think there's a lot of really cool techniques that I'm going to show you in this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do, or the first thing that you should do, is open up a new document, and you can go to File, New for that, and it's going to pop up the little dialog box. Now I have a 1920 by 1080 document opened in RGB color mode, and that's all you really need to have set for this. And go ahead and hit Create on that. I'll hit Close because I already have one open. And for me, the first thing I want to do is get all my colors in order. So I'm going to select all of this artwork. I like what I came up with. I'm going to go up to where normally the fill would be up here in the color picker selector thingy. And I'm going to add a new color group by clicking this folder icon here. And that's going to ask me, what do you want to add this from? Where are these colors coming from? And I'm going to say selected artwork. I'm also going to make sure to uncheck include swatches for tints. I think that might include like the swatches for the different multiply effects and stuff like that, which I don't necessarily want. So I'm going to hit OK, and that's going to set up all of my swatches for every color that I've used in this art piece here. Now that's a quick way for me, but you don't have the artwork already. So if you want to, you can grab all the hex codes from the description down below. I'll put them in there. And for each hex code, so if I click on a, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Let's undo that guy. Okay, so if I click on a specific color, let's double click in here on this blue and go to the colors panel. Whenever you adjust some of these colors, if you double click on this guy and you pull up the color picker, down here there's like a little hashtag. That's where you paste the hex code. So whenever you want to grab one of the colors that I used, just paste it into here, and that will equal the exact same color that I'm using. And then once you do that, you could always add those swatches just like I did here. So now that you've got your colors figured out, and if you need to pause the video and go add all those, you can. We're gonna get started. And this is a birthday cake, but a birthday cake is made out of quite a few simple shapes. There's a lot of rectangles in this, and there's some other little things that we're gonna do, and some tricks and tips that I've figured out while making this guy, as a matter of fact. So let's go over here and let's start fresh. I'm gonna start on the just this gray space because it's a little hard to see on the white some of the stuff that we're doing. Let's begin by creating a rectangle, and we're going to do that by selecting the rectangle tool over here. The shortcut key for that is M, and we're going to create the base layer of our cake. No, we're not. We're going to create the plate that it sits on. Let's create the plate that it sits on. So that's going to be like a skinny long platter, I guess, if you will, and we'll just create that rectangle. Okay, and then I'm going to switch back to my selection tool, and that shortcut key is V. So the shortcut key for rectangle is M, shortcut key for selection tool is V. I'll be switching back and forth between those a lot. Let's make this more of that reddish color. How about maybe this color here? And that'll be our little platter. So let's go back to the rectangle tool, shortcut key is M once again, and let's create that first cake layer on this guy, and we're just going to make him a little bit taller. How about right in here? You can kind of eyeball it. This is your cake. Make your cake what you want it to be. And let's change this color to more of this tannish color. That's going to be like, or no, we'll go with the we'll go with the tan color. So that's going to be like the color of our cake, I guess, the actual cake part, not the icing. I'm going to click on this guy with the selection tool, and then shift click on the platter, and then click on the platter again. It's going to outline it in blue, and that means we are now aligning it to a key object. You can see that up here. We're aligning to a key object. And I'm going to hit the horizontal align center, and that's going to bring my cake, just shift it over ever so slightly to make it lined up in the center with my platter. So now I'm going to duplicate this cake layer, and by holding Option or Alt on a PC, and I'm going to hold Shift to keep it in line, and we're going to bring it up until it intersects there. And all of these pink lines that you see, that Those lines are called smart guides. They're very, very helpful. I would turn them on. They're in the View tab down to smart guides. That's Command U, Control U on a PC. And from this point, let's make him a little bit shorter. Remember, this is our top layer. And we're going to squeeze him in from the outside in. So I'm going to hold Option while I click and drag those outside edges. Make sure you have the two arrows pointing in opposite directions. And we're going to just make this top layer a little bit shorter than the base layer. So from here, you know, I like what's going on. What I want to do now, though, and you will need Adobe CC to access this feature, and I think CC 2015. But I'm going to switch over to my direct selection tool with the shortcut key A, and I'm going to grab the top right and shift click on the top left points. So I've selected both the top points here. You'll notice that I've selected them because they're filled in with blue, whereas the points that aren't selected are filled in with white. From here, I have these little icons that pop up. They're these little, they're corner widget icons, and when I roll over them, my cursor actually changes to an arrow with a like a rounded corner in the bottom of it. And that's because if I click and drag these, I can actually round those corners. And I'm going to do that just a little bit to each of these corners to make this cake a little more friendly and rounded on the edges. If you're not seeing those pop up, you can always go up to View once again, and then there should be, yes, there's a little Hide Corner Widget button here. It'll either say Show or Hide Corner Widget, so you can select that to show or hide those little icons that you get when you have an object selected with the direct selection tool. So let's go up here and select both the top points of the second layer, the top layer, and I can do that by clicking and dragging with that direct selection tool, and it goes ahead and selects those, and we'll bring these corners in as well. In fact, let's go back down here, and I'm going to select these 2 points here to select this corner. I'm going to find out what my corner radius is. It's actually written up here, and let's make that, let's go ahead and make that 25. That's easy to remember, and I'm going to select these 2 top points, and we'll make those 25 as well. All right, we're getting somewhere, I promise. Next thing I want to do is maybe round the edges of my platter a little bit, but let's only do about 5 pixels on that. And that may even be too much. That'll be okay. Maybe we'll go back to about 3 pixels, and I just want that to soften up a little bit. I'm going to zoom in here just so that we can work with this cake a little bit closer. All right, so what I want to do next is add the icing, right? So what I'm going to use is something that I've almost never ever used in Illustrator, but that is the brush tool. And the reason I'm using it is because this combined with the shape builder tool allows us to create a really unique icing effect. So let's select maybe one of our white layers here, white colors for the icing, and I'm just going to draw right here. And we're going to draw through this cake, and I'm just going to kind of swoop down like we got some icing on there. And I'm going to circle back around outside of the cake just enough to come back over to this edge, and you can meet that if you want. And so we've created, and you notice once I let go, Illustrator actually smoothens out all of those paths so that, you know, any irregularities that I have when I'm drawing, I'm just drawing with my mouse, it actually smooths those out very nicely. And if I double click on my brush, my paintbrush tool over here, it'll actually bring up the paintbrush tool options, and I can adjust the fidelity of this to be accurate to what I draw or smooth. And I want that to be as smooth as possible because when I'm drawing with my mouse, it's going to be kind of choppy. So I want Illustrator to help smooth out those strokes. And I'm just going to hit OK after that. And I can select this with the selection tool. And instead of a stroke, I can actually go to my color panel over here on the right. If you don't see it, you can go to Window, Color Panel. And once I pop that out, I can swap the fill and the stroke so that instead of a stroke, I can actually have a filled shape. And once I do that, I'm going to go down to Pathfinder. Once again, you can go to Window and find Pathfinder if you don't have that option. But I'm going to go down to Pathfinder and just for safekeeping, hit the Unite button just to make sure this is all one nice shape. and then I'll just minimize that. Okay, cool. Boy, that looks great, doesn't it? How about we do this? I'm going to show you the Shape Builder tool. And to use the Shape Builder tool with two shapes, I'm going to need to select both those shapes. So let's select the bottom layer, and I'm going to hold Shift and select the icing. From there, I'm going to go over and find my Shape Builder tool. It's usually hanging out over here somewhere. Here it is. 2 circles and a pointer. Shape Builder tool, shortcut key Shift M. I'm going to click that, and once I have that, if I roll over with this Shape Builder tool, you notice it does this little like grid pattern on each of the shapes that it's recognizing. So it sees that I have these two shapes selected, and it's recognizing here's where they overlap. What I can do with that, you'll notice that right now my cursor has a plus icon on it. If I hold the Option key, that turns into a minus icon, and then if I want to get rid of this outside layer, all I have to do is click on it, and it completely gets rid of it. It clips, well, it doesn't clip, it actually deletes that shape, and it leaves this other shape. So now if I switch back to my selection tool, I actually have the icing masked into the bottom layer. So from here, I'm going to select that icing. I'm going to scale it up a little bit, and I'm holding Shift and Option while dragging from this corner. I just want that icing to go outside the edge of the cake a little bit. And I think I need to zoom in here. So Command plus and minus lets you zoom in and out really easily. So I don't want it to go too far outside the edge. So I'm just going to grab this and move it up about that much. And from here, what I don't like is this sharp little pointy edge down there, right? So I can go back to my direct selection tool, shortcut key A, and click on that anchor point. And I can use my little corner widget to pull that in to create a much more rounded corner. So it's like that icing is in 3D going around the edge of the cake. And I can go back to this side, click that same anchor point on this side, and do the same thing, just round that off. Now what's cool is that, you know, icing isn't perfect, and so your drawing with the paintbrush tool doesn't have to be perfect, and this looks pretty decent for icing on that bottom layer. So let's go up to the top layer and do the same thing. We'll do it a little bit quicker this time. Shortcut key is B for the brush tool. We are going to, I'm going to click on this icing just so that my swatch changes to that same color. Shortcut key is B for the brush tool. All right, now I'm just going to draw through here, and we'll just make some waves here. Looks good. Kind of go like this. Alrighty, we're going to go select that, shortcut key V for the selection tool, select that icing, go to color, swap it, and then we're going to go to Pathfinder and just kind of unite that, merge that together. It closes in any paths that aren't that are still open. And from here, we're going to select the top two pieces here, the top layer and the icing. I'm going to hit Shift M for the Shape Builder tool, hold Option, and click on that outside icing layer. And now we've got that clipped in there, or deleted, so that it's a shape in there. Gonna hold Shift and Option, scale that up a touch, and we're gonna grab that corner, pull it in a little bit, as much as we can, and grab that corner and pull it in as much as we can. So now we've got icing on the top and the bottom layers. While we're at it, I'm gonna add this little like double layer. It's kind of like mimicking like if that cake has layers of icing inside of it, and we're just going to do that by hitting the line segment tool over here. The shortcut key for that is like the slash. Is that a forward slash or a backslash? I don't know. It's not that angle slash, actually. That's confusing. It's that angle slash. So the one that goes from the top left down to the down lower right. I don't know. All right, wasting time here. Next thing we need to do is just use that line segment tool and draw a line all the way across. And then there's nothing, right? Well, we need to give that line a stroke. So let's do maybe 10 points on that. And perfect. I like the white. I want the same frosting color. That's what I want. All right, I'm going to switch back to my selection tool. I'm going to hold Option. I get the double cursor there now. And if I click on this and I drag it down, it's actually going to create a duplicate of that, and that's what I want. I wanted two little I don't know, it's not a swirl of, it's like an icing layer in there, and that's perfect. Now what I'm going to do is actually select these two guys and go up to Object, Expand, and that's going to take those from being strokes to being actual shapes. I'm expanding that stroke into a shape. So now I actually have edges to all of that. And let's go ahead and select everything. So, or the whole bottom layer here. So I've got the bottom layer cake and these two icing things. And now that I have those three selected, I'm going to hit Shift M. I've got that shape builder tool selected. Hold Option, and I'm just going to draw through the outsides of those to kind of cut them off there, because I want that icing to just be on top of the cake and inside the cake there. Perfect. So I've got two little icing layers there, and I'm going to bring them up a touch. So let's zoom in, Command plus, and click on both of these. I'm going to hold Shift to get both of them. I'm just going to use my arrow key to kind of shift that up a little bit, just to bring it away from the bottom some. Cool, we're looking good. Actually, we've got pretty much the cake done here. We're gonna let's make a candle up top. Candle, right? Yeah, birthday cake candle. All we are gonna do for that is the rectangle tool. That's M, shortcut key, and let's just create a candle shape up here, just like that. Now it's still the icing color, so let's switch that to maybe something more red. So we got a red candle up there. And I'm going to hit that selection tool again. I always go back to that selection tool, a lot of times by pressing the shortcut key V. Now I'm going to send this to the back, and I can do that by the shortcut key for that is Shift Command left bracket and then right bracket to bring to front. But you can also right click, hit arrange, and say send to back. I just want that candle to be behind this cake layer. And I think I'm going to add some stripes in the candle. So M for the rectangle tool, and then let's just draw some thin little rectangles straight across here. I'm going to change the color of that to a white color, maybe that icing color, and I'm going to create a couple more of these by holding Option and Shift and just dragging them down. How about we create, I don't know, 6 of these or so. So I did that once, right? I did that transformation once. What I can do now, since I did that transformation once, let's go up to Object, Transform, Transform again. And it's just going to do the exact same transformation down. So then if I hit Command D, which is the shortcut, I can just hit that a couple times. And it's going to transform that all the way down. Now I wanted six stripes, so that's good. I'm going to actually bring this guy down a little bit, and I'm going to select all of these and go up to my transformation options, and instead of align to artboard, I'm going to align to selection, and I'm going to distribute these vertically so that it's going to evenly space them out. And from there, how about we select them all again, rotate a little bit. We want, obviously for the stripes, we want those to be a little bit rotated. And from there, let's select all the stripes and the candle, and then Shift M for that that famous shape builder tool, hold Option, and just draw through everything that you don't want. So I don't want anything outside of the candle because I want those stripes right there on that candle. I want them to be a part of it. Perfect. V to go back to the selection tool. I'm going to click off of it, and there's my striped candle. Now one thing I don't like about this guy is the pointy edges, so let's go back in there. I'm going to click on him and then switch to my direct selection tool. And that's going to pull up all my cornery widget stuff. And let's just bump this up by using the arrow keys to see, I think just once. I think 1 pixel is all I really want on that candle. Just a little bit of a rounded edge. That looks perfect. Be careful that you don't round that edge too much, that it brings it up. And you can see, if you round this edge too much, it's going to bring it above your cake. You don't want that. You want that candle to go straight down into the cake. So I'm going to undo that and make sure that there's no curve there, and that's perfect. All right, one thing we want to make here is the flame. How about a flame at the top of the candle here? How's this tutorial for teaching a bunch of stuff, right? I'm going to hit the L key, and that is the ellipse tool. You can also click and hold on that rectangle tool and drop down and select the ellipse tool, but the L key is the shortcut key for the ellipse tool. And we're going to make a circle by holding Shift and Option. That's going to create a circle from the center out. And let's create there, right there. That's good. All right, let's change the color of this. So I'm going to change this to maybe this orange color. Let's create a flame. All right, so if you notice, when I have this circle selected, there's 4 points. And there's one here, 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 and here. So let's select the top point. Oh, there, you can see the points better now. So 4 points, 4 anchor points. I'm going to select just the top one with the direct selection tool, shortcut key A. And once I have that, I'm going to click and drag it up a little bit. And I'm holding shift to sort of drag it up. And right now we've gotten like an egg shape. So we need this to be more flamey. So let's zoom in a little bit, zooming in. And what I want to do now is actually switch over to my pen tool, which the shortcut key for that is P. And I'm going to hold Option or Alt on a PC, and that's going to switch to the anchor, well, what's it called? The anchor point tool? I think that's the anchor point tool. Maybe. Yep, anchor point tool. So it's going to switch to the anchor point tool momentarily. As long as I'm holding Option, it switches to that. And I can grab that handle and then drag it down and start to create kind of like a teardrop or like a flame shape. And once I do that, it actually gets rid of the other handle, but it doesn't really. So switch back to your direct selection tool, click on that anchor, and that handle will show up again. Switch over to the pen tool, shortcut key P, and I can hold Option or Alt to affect this handle as well and bring him down. So we've got this flame. I think I'm going to not bring him down as much so that this flame is kind of like swooping down on this side, but a little more rounded on this side. I'm going to hit V, and there we go. We just created a little flame. I'm going to create like that white center of it, right? The white hot center of a flame, just by clicking on this shape. And we're going to copy with Command C, that's Control C on a PC. And then we're going to hit Command F to paste in front. Those options are also up in Edit, so you can hit Copy, Command C, or Control C, and then paste in front, which is Command F or Control F. And that creates a layer right on top of my other layer. And I want to do that because I'm going to use the same shape for that inner flame, the inner like hot center point of it. And I can just click and drag this down from the top while holding shift. If I don't hold shift, it's gonna like make it all wonky and skewed. So I'm gonna hold shift and just create, you know, go down maybe to where that tip is about halfway down the flame and let go. And I need to change the color of this. So I'm going to select something a lot lighter, like a lighter tan or something. So from here, there we go. We've got the white hot center of our flame. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. The only thing we're missing here is the wick. So let's create a little wick. I'm going to create a line, just a simple stroke. So we're going to use that line segment tool again. And we're just going to create a small line coming up from our candle here. And let's give that a stroke of maybe 3 points. Oh, that's way too much. We'll drop that down to actually 1 point for the scale that I have everything set up at. And with that stroke, I'm going to make it more of a charcoal color. And then I'm going to actually go to that stroke panel, and I'm going to do a rounded cap on that. And you'll notice that that rounds each of the ends. It's a little hard to see here. We'll zoom in on him. But each of the ends is now rounded on that stroke. And I like that shape a lot. So what I'm going to do is go to Object, Expand, and just fill in that stroke. So now it's an actual shape. But I do want him to be behind this candle. So I'm going to select him, right click, arrange, and send to back. But I also want him to be in front of the flame. So I'm going to right click the flame. I've selected both of these. And let's go ahead and group those two together. So we're going to select both the flames, right click, and group them together. And we're going to send him to the back as well by going right clicking on it, arrange, and then send to back. There we go. And we're just going to maybe bump this down a touch. And that looks pretty good. So we've got a wick and a flame. I think that flame's like a little too big, so we'll select him again. And I'm just going to hold shift from the top here and kind of bring him down in size a little bit. And then I might bump him up with the arrows. Oh, maybe not. That's a little too much. So I'll just kind of drag him down. There we go. We'll see if that flame looks a little better. Yeah, it does, I think. So there we have it. We made a birthday cake. The only thing left we have to do is the background and the shadows. So let's create a background. I'm going to go back to my ellipse tool. Shortcut key for that is L. And then somewhere in the center here, right? I'm going to intersect in the center of everything. I'm going to hold Shift and Option and create a circle from about there in the center. And once I've got it about the size I want it to be, I'm just going to let go. And that made it whatever color we had selected last. So let's change that to some sort of a steely blue color. And from there, we're going to send him, he's got to go all the way to the back. So we're going to send him to the back by right-clicking, go to Arrange, and then Send to Back. All right, we are getting close, you guys. So I think he's maybe a little off-center. Let's just bring that circle down some to center that cake up. And I think we're also going to go ahead and group all of this cake together. So right now it's a bunch of separate elements. I'm going to select everything, deselect the circle by holding Shift and clicking on it, so that now I have just the cake selected. I can hit Command or Control G to group it, or I can right click and hit Group. And now that I have it grouped, no matter what I select, that group is going to move together as a unit. So now that it's centered up, I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to select everything and then click on the circle, and we're going to hit this horizontal line center button. Just, you saw it nudge it over just a little bit, just to want to make sure that's in the center. And then I'm going to eyeball the vertical center. I kind of like where that is, right there. All right, let's create a shadow. I think the first shadow I'm going to make is the shadow on the entire cake layer, and I'm going to do that by copying this. Remember, edit, copy, Command or Control C, and then we're going to paste in front with Command F. It doesn't look like I did anything, but I did. I made a second layer of that cake right in front of it. Now what I'm going to do is actually double click on that, so I'm inside of the cake, the top cake group layer, and so now I can select all of these objects because I have it isolated. You can see I'm on layer 1 inside of this group. I've got all these elements isolated. What I'm going to do is interesting here. I'm going to actually use the rectangle tool. That's shortcut key M. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Make sure it's big enough to cover your entire cake, but then I'm only going to bring it across half of the cake to about there. I'm going to let go. I don't really care what color that is. I'm going to select all. That's underneath Select All or Command A or Control A. So select all. I've got everything, all these cake elements and this big old rectangle selected. Shift M for that lovely shape builder tool. And notice I've got all these shapes. Let's get rid of everything on the left side. I'm going to hold Option and just draw through everything that I don't want while holding Option. So I got all these major shapes taken care of. Let's zoom in a little bit now on this candle, and we'll do the same thing. Shift M and then hold Option and draw through all the shapes that we don't want. Now, there's a couple more in here, so let's zoom in here again. That's a shortcut key Z for the zoom tool. And you may have a scrubby zoom, or you may have the zoom to selection like I'm showing you right now, where you just draw and it zooms to that. So I've got this wick in here, and I really need to get rid of the left side of that as well. So hold Shift and M and just draw through that while holding Option or Alt. And there we go. So I've gotten rid of, we'll zoom out here, gotten rid of the entire left side of everything, right? So I've got this layer of just the right half. The reason I did that is because now that I've got this right half layer, all I need to do is go to Transparency and switch that, the blending mode, to Multiply to create a shadow on the right side of the cake. And from here, I think that's a little harsh, so let's maybe drop that back, opacity. And actually you can grab opacity in the transparency panel as well. That maybe makes a little more sense. Hit 75% just to pull that shadow back a little bit. Don't want it to be too strong. There you go. There's your shadow of your cake. All right, we're almost done. If you want to stick with me, I'm going to show you how to create a long shadow. In another tutorial, I showed people how to do it with a blend method. This one, I think I'm just going to do like a quick shape building method with the pen tool. So I've got everything selected here. Let's get rid of some of this. So I'm going to lock this in with Command 2. You can also go up to, I think, Object, yeah, and then Lock Selection. So I'm actually going to just I'm gonna grab everything and lock it with Command or Control 2. So now I cannot grab anything. Like, everything is locked in, and I can't accidentally, click on something that I don't want to. But because I have my smart guides enabled, notice how it recognizes where all these anchor points and the paths are. So I can go in there and create a point right at the very tippy top of this flame. We can create a point there. And then I can create a point in the bottom left corner. We'll create it somewhere. Oop, we don't want that. We'll create it somewhere down just along this edge here, maybe right in there. So I've got those 2 points created. I'm going to switch back to my selection tool. Shortcut key is V. And with this, I want to duplicate this out. So I'm going to have that selected, and I'm going to hold Option and duplicate it outside of our circle background. And once I have that, I basically have 2 objects now. I've got these 2 parallel objects. That's the most important part right now, is that these 2 are parallel. And now that I have that, let's go back. Let's hit P for the pen tool. And I'm going to select this anchor. You'll notice the slash underneath the pen tool. It means I'm going to continue on this path. Select that anchor, and let's combine it with this side over here. And once I do that, it may fill that in automatically for you. As long as I have 3 points, it will. Let's change the color of this so we can see it. Maybe something more like, a really light gray color, or maybe something in the middle there. And it's just a gray, just so you can see it. This path isn't closed, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Pathfinder, just hit that Unite button or Merge. One or the other will close this as one shape. And from here, actually, let's go ahead and create a gradient. How's that? We'll create a gradient shadow, not just a shadow, but a gradient long shadow. And all I have to do is go to gradient and click on this gradient area. Now, this is already set up. I'm gonna switch this back to what you'll find. So you're gonna find this being like a white to a black gradient. And there's the gradient tool over here in the tool panel. I believe the shortcut key for that is G. Yeah, so you see the gradient here, that's the gradient tool. And you see this bar here, you can actually redraw the gradient. So I could click in the top here and then draw down at this angle to redraw the angle of the gradient and where the gradient starts and stops. Now I want this to be from black to white, so how about I just switch these 2 colors. And I also don't want it to be a stark black, so let's double click on that black, and we'll go to maybe something more like a 40% black. And then this white is fine. The other thing I want is for this shape, and I'm going to go to my selection tool and just select that shape. I want him to be multiplied. And you can see now where this shadow is going to be coming from. And it looks kind of wonky, but that's okay. What I want to do now is unlock everything. So I'm going to go up to Object, Unlock All. That's also Option Command 2 or Control Command 2. And once I do that, everything's back in play, right? All of these elements can be moved and whatnot. Now, I don't want to move them all at this point. What I do want, though, you can see how this is actually not going to be the shadow that we want, right? I need this shadow to start here and not... What is this? There's no shadow. There's nothing casting a shadow over there. So I'm going to add a couple more points to our shadow. And as long as my shadow is selected, there's a little plus icon that pops up. I'm going to hit plus there. I'm going to hit plus here, and I'm going to hit plus down here. And then I'm going to switch to the direct selection tool with the white arrow here. And I'm going to click on that point and only that point. Notice the other ones are not selected. They're still white. This one is filled in. And then I can click and drag, and just drag that point directly below the candle. And I can do the same thing here. I can drag that in to make sure that shadow doesn't cross over anything behind the cake. And same thing down here. We'll just kind of make sure that that doesn't go behind the cake on the left side. We want it behind on the right, but not on the left. there's another thing happening down here, and I think I'm going to change how this platter is set up. So because I've got rounded corners at the bottom, there's not a good spot to really start that shadow at. So I'm going to select this guy, and we're actually going to select him with the regular selection tool. So I just have him selected, and we're going to double click on him, and then so I've got him isolated, or I've got the whole cake isolated, but at least I won't select anything on accident here. So I'm going to use the direct selection tool to select all of the bottom points, and we're just going to get rid of the corners on that. So I'm going to go back to 0. So that's going to be rounded here, but then flat at the bottom there. And I think that that's going to be more like, you know, the platter and where it stops right there. So now I'm going to double click out of this, and I think one thing we need to do, so let's go ahead and finish this shadow out. Let's go ahead and finish this shadow. So I'm going to hit Z, and I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And this shadow actually needs to be parallel. So anytime I move one of these 2 points, this point or this point up here, what I actually want to do is move this entire line segment, because I want it to be parallel with this one. So I don't want to affect the angle of this guy. So I need to select this point, and I need to select this point by holding Shift and clicking on it. So now that I've got the 2 selected, I am safe to zoom back in and sort of move this path till that anchor point intersects with the bottom left of our plate here. And once it does that, I've actually moved this entire line segment, so we're still parallel with this guy. So that's all good. That's all fine and dandy. So we're looking pretty good here. There's one mistake that we're going to correct, and then I'm going to show you how to get this shadow behind the cake. So what we're going to do is take this shadow layer, and I know it looks weird right now. We're going to fix that. I'm going to send him to the back. Arrange, send to back. Then I'm going to take this this background layer, and we're going to send him to the back, because I want him to actually be the furthest back. And that's looking pretty good. So before we clip this shadow in here, let's zoom in and fix one little problem. It's hard to see, but when we unrounded our corner of our platter, we didn't unround the corner of the shadow. So we need to double click in on that shadow layer, and then A for the direct selection tool, select this and get rid of the corner. We can pull that all the way down, or we can select 0 up here on corners. And then I'm going to hit that selection tool and double click outside of that to kind of go back to our main canvas here. And that's fixed that. So I kind of like that better, and I like how the shadows go from there. So what you can do is define the angle of your shadow. And to do that, use the direct selection tool, select both of these points here, and that's because you want to keep this, every time you move any of these points, you want to keep this parallel with this, or this segment parallel with this segment. But as long as I keep that parallel and I keep that shadow inside of, you know, the cake, I mean, I could bring it down if I wanted to. It's up to you, whatever the angle is that you want. But I think that you want to keep that shadow above the cake, so, and then above the platter. So anything from like here all the way down to maybe in here is where I would probably move it, just based on other flat artwork that I've seen. But you can find your angle of the shadow that you want. And then once you're satisfied with that, let's select this background layer. We're going to go up to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste in Front. Once again, Command C, Command F. And then I'm going to bring this guy actually all the way to the front. So we're going to arrange and bring to the front. Sorry, I had a little brain fart there. And once we have that, we're going to select him with the regular selection tool and select, or Shift select, the shadow. And I'm going to right click on that group. We're going to make clipping mask. And that's going to clip the shadow into that circle background layer shape. But it also, because we brought everything to the front, put it on top of everything again. So let's right click, send that to the back, and then we'll right click on our background, and we're going to send him to the back. So now we have the background layer at the very bottom, the shadow next, and then we've got our cake, which I'm not sure if it's grouped together. Yeah, we should group the cake we've got two layers of the cake, right? We've got a shadow and then the regular cake. Let's shift click on both of those and Command G or Control G to group those together. And we can now group, no, we're done grouping, y'all. I think we just made it. Let's see how close we were to the other one. We'll bring this guy over here. Oh, wow. Our colors were way off, but that's okay. We made another cake. So your cake's going to be completely different than the cake that I made, but that is maybe how to make a cake. You guys can use all these great techniques that I showed you. This was probably the longest tutorial I have ever done. I'm so bad at explaining things quickly. Maybe one day I'll do like a less explanation tutorial. I don't know, you guys, but I hope that you learned some things following this. If you did, like the video down below. Make sure to subscribe for more tips and tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.